The message didn't come with a warning. No phone call. No argument. Just one sentence that erased me from my own family. My mother typed, "We're cutting all ties. Don't ever come around again." My sister reacted with a heart. My father sealed it with, "We stand by our words." They thought it was the end of a conversation. They didn't realize it was the beginning of consequences. Because instead of begging, instead of arguing, I replied with 6 words that changed everything. "By Monday, I'll pull my name from all loans." By midnight, the family page was on fire. And 1 week later, everything they built began to collapse. My name is Catherine, and I was 31 years old when my family decided I was disposable. The message didn't arrive during a screaming match or a dramatic confrontation. There was no warning shot. No build-up. No last conversation where someone tried to explain themselves badly. It arrived quietly, at the worst possible time. I was halfway through a regulatory compliance briefing when my phone vibrated once against the polished surface of the conference table. 12 people sat around me. Senior executives, external auditors, legal counsel, listening as I walked them through a risk exposure model that could determine whether the company passed inspection or paid a 7-figure penalty. I didn't look at my phone right away. I never do in meetings. When your job is to spot weak points, distractions are liabilities. I finished my sentence. Answered a follow-up question. Advanced to the next slide. Only when someone else began speaking did I glance down. The screen showed our family group chat. My mother's name sat at the top. No emojis. No softening language. Just one sentence. "We've decided it's best if we go our separate ways. Don't come around anymore." I reread it once. Then again. 3 seconds later, a notification popped up beneath it. My younger sister reacted with a red heart. Another beat passed. Then my father added, "We stand by this decision." That was it. No explanation. No argument. No discussion. Termination delivered digitally, like canceling a subscription. The room around me stayed exactly the same. The hum of the projector. The faint scent of coffee. Someone adjusting their chair. Someone else nodding at a chart. I didn't gasp. I didn't feel dizzy. I didn't even feel angry. I felt hollow. Like a structure that had already collapsed internally, finally acknowledging gravity. I finished the meeting. That part surprises people when they hear it later. They expect drama, tears, a moment where I ran to the bathroom and cried into paper towels. But I didn't. I answered questions. Closed my laptop. Thanked everyone for their time. My voice didn't shake once. I walked back to my office with measured steps, nodded at my assistant, closed the door behind me, and turned the lock. Only then did I sit down. People talk about betrayal as if it's explosive. Like lightning or fire. But betrayal, real betrayal, feels more like oxygen leaving a sealed room. You don't notice it at first. You just realize, suddenly, that breathing has become difficult. I stared at my phone again. The messages hadn't changed. They weren't typos. They weren't impulsive. They were deliberate. I placed the phone face down on my desk and opened my computer. 4 years, I had been the financial stabilizer of my family. Not officially. Not publicly. But in every way that mattered. I was the one who co-signed the commercial loans when banks hesitated. The one whose credit score dropped interest rates by entire points. The one who temporarily covered payments when cash flow fell short. The one who reclassified expenses so auditors wouldn't dig too deeply. They called it helping. I called it risk management. I managed their books for free. Fixed their mistakes quietly. Rewrote bad decisions in spreadsheets until they looked survivable. And now, according to a group chat, I was no longer welcome. I logged into the primary loan dashboard. Balance: $1.8 million. Status: active. Primary guarantor: Catherine Hale. Still me. I exhaled slowly through my nose. Interesting. I clicked into recent transactions. The pattern was familiar and ugly. My sister's brand retreat in Bali, categorized as strategic outreach. My mother's weekly transfers, labeled consulting fees. My father's vintage motorcycle restoration, somehow logged as asset appreciation. They had always treated my intelligence like a utility, something you turn on when needed and forget about when it's running smoothly. 2 weeks earlier, my mother had mentioned a new financial partner over dinner. She'd said it casually, as if it were a side note. Someone more flexible. Someone who didn't overthink everything. At the time, I'd smiled and nodded. Now, I understood. They thought they had replaced me. They forgot what I was holding. I navigated to the guarantor controls. My cursor hovered. Not because I was unsure, but because I wanted to acknowledge the weight of what I was about to do. For 5 years, I had absorbed their instability, covered their volatility, smoothed their crises. I had postponed vacations, delayed plans, redirected bonuses. I had told myself it was temporary, that once things stabilized, I could step back. They never stabilized. Because they didn't want stability. They wanted access. I clicked Initiate Withdrawal of Guarantee. A confirmation window opened. Please state reason for withdrawal. I uploaded the screenshot of the group message. Reason: termination of relationship. Submit. Then I froze the accounts. Every line. Every card. Every authorization. The system processed silently. Then the banner appeared. Action successful. Pending finalization. My phone buzzed immediately. Alert. Commercial account access suspended. I leaned back in my chair. And for the first time in years, my shoulders dropped. I hadn't realized how heavy responsibility felt until it was gone. I blocked their numbers. All of them. Not out of spite. Out of necessity. That evening, I told my husband Daniel everything. No minimizing. No reframing. No, it's probably fine. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he asked one question. Do you want a lawyer? Or sleep first? I chose both. Within 48 hours, the silence fractured exactly as predicted. Missed payments triggered alerts. Cards declined. Automatic drafts failed. Blocked numbers became voicemails. Emails followed. Then came the physical attempts. My assistant knocked softly on my door. There's someone downstairs, she said carefully. She says she's your mother. She's crying. She says it's urgent. I didn't look up from my screen. It's not a medical emergency, I said evenly. It's a financial one. That night, my sister posted a video. Perfect lighting. Glossed vulnerability. Tears arranged to fall without smudging mascara. Caption: when jealousy destroys families. The comments filled instantly. Support. Validation. Applause. Victims always attract crowds faster than truth. I watched it without emotion. Because while they were scrambling publicly, I was reviewing older records, ones they assumed I'd never reopen. That's when I noticed it. A recurring payment. Monthly. Consistent. Northvale Consulting Group. 6 figures over 18 months. I searched the registry. Owner: my mother. Beneficiary: a trust in my sister's name. The final pieces locked into place with a sickening clarity. This wasn't recklessness. It was design. They hadn't just used me. They had planned to sacrifice me. They intended to default. Transfer assets. Leave me holding the debt. And now they were panicking, not because they missed me, but because the plan had failed. That's when I sent the message. Come to my office tomorrow at 10 a.m. We need to resolve this. My father replied in under a minute. Good. You've finally come to your senses. He thought I was surrendering. He didn't know I was closing the ledger. They arrived early. People always do when they think they're about to win something back. I watched them from the glass wall of the mezzanine above the lobby, my hands resting lightly on the railing. There was no adrenaline, no tightness in my chest, just a detached awareness, the same feeling I get when reviewing a case file where the conclusion is already obvious. My father entered first, posture straight, confidence rehearsed. He wore the navy suit he reserved for meetings where he expected deference. The one with the gold cufflinks he liked to tap against tables when he spoke, as if punctuation made his words more authoritative. My mother followed close behind, cardigan soft, expression carefully composed into concern. She always played the role well, the wounded matriarch, anxious but loving, desperate to fix things. My sister trailed them, head down, scrolling through her phone, thumbs moving quickly. She didn't look nervous. She looked bored. Like this was an inconvenience interrupting her day, not a reckoning. They checked in at reception like they belonged there. Like this building hadn't been paid for, indirectly, by my restraint. I left the mezzanine and met them in the lobby. "Catherine," my mother said immediately, arms opening for a hug. Her voice was already trembling, calibrated for an audience. I stepped to the side. No hug. No acknowledgement beyond a nod. Her face flickered, confusion, then offense, but she recovered quickly. "We've been so worried about you," she said loudly, glancing toward the receptionist as if recruiting witnesses. "You've been acting so erratic." "Conference room B," I said. "Follow me." I didn't wait to see if they complied. The boardroom was already set. Daniel stood at the head of the table, jacket off, sleeves rolled just enough to signal he was here to work, not perform. In front of him were neatly stacked folders, aligned with almost surgical precision. My father stopped short when he saw him. "What's this?" he asked, frowning. "Why is he here?" "This isn't a family meeting," I said, pulling out a chair but not sitting. "It's a settlement discussion." My father scoffed. "We don't need lawyers. This is between us." "No," Daniel said calmly. "It isn't." They sat. Reluctantly. Uneasily. The dynamic shifted the moment they took their seats. This wasn't their kitchen table. This wasn't a space where guilt and obligation bent in their favor. This was neutral ground. I connected my laptop to the screen. The projector hummed to life. White light flooded the wall behind me. I didn't look at them when I spoke. "I assume you're here because the accounts were frozen," I said evenly. My father leaned back, crossing his arms. "We're here because you had a tantrum and cost us a deal." I clicked the remote. The first slide appeared. Northvale Consulting Group, LLC. Registered owner, Laura Hale. Beneficiary trust, Evelyn Hale. My mother inhaled sharply. My sister's phone lowered an inch. My father's jaw tightened. I let the silence sit. Then I advanced the slide. A ledger appeared. Highlighted transfers, dates, amounts. Monthly. Consistent. 6 figures over time. "These transfers," I said, still not raising my voice, "were pulled from the commercial credit line I guaranteed." "That's consulting income," my father snapped. "You don't understand." "It's not," Daniel interrupted. "And you know it." I finally looked at them. At my mother's pale face. At my sister's wide eyes. At my father's forced indignation. "You created a shell entity," I continued, "and routed loan funds into a protected trust. You planned to default on the primary business and leave me liable." "That's not what happened," my mother said quickly, standing halfway out of her chair. "We did it for the family." "For Evelyn," my sister added defensively. "She needed security." There it was. The unspoken truth finally spoken out loud. "You assumed I could absorb the damage," I said. "Because I always had." The room erupted. My father accused me of betrayal. My mother cried about loyalty. My sister accused me of jealousy. They spoke over one another, voices climbing, desperation leaking through every word. I didn't respond. I waited. This was the part people misunderstand about power. They think it's loud, that it dominates space through force. It isn't. Power is silence that doesn't need permission. When their voices finally burned themselves out, the room settled into an uneasy quiet. "Are you finished?" I asked. My father glared. "You can't prove any of this." "I don't need to prove it to you." I nodded to Daniel. He slid 3 thick envelopes across the table. The sound they made, paper against polished wood, was sharp and final. "This," I said, "is confirmation that the bank has opened a fraud investigation." My mother gasped. "And this," I continued, "is the accepted revocation of my guarantee." My sister whispered, barely audible, "You're ruining us." "No," I said. "I'm refusing to be ruined." I reached into my bag and placed a set of keys on the table. House keys. Office keys. Storage unit keys. "I'm divesting," I said. "From the business. From the assets. From this arrangement." My mother lunged forward, grabbing my wrist. "Catherine, please," she sobbed. "We can fix this. We can move the money back." I gently pulled my hand free. I looked at her, not as my mother, not as someone I needed approval from, but as a line item that no longer balanced. "I don't want restitution," I said. "I want distance." I stood. "The meeting is over." Daniel followed me without a word. Behind us, the shouting resumed, but it sounded distant now, muffled, like noise from another floor. We walked through the lobby. Out the door. Into the afternoon light. I didn't look back. 6 months is a long time in finance. Assets dissolve. Investigations unfold. Structures collapse under their own weight. The outcomes followed the math. Without the credit line, the business stalled. Contractors walked. Payments failed. The bank moved fast. The foreclosure notice came 3 weeks later. I didn't attend the auction. I filed the email under resolved. The investigation took longer. Fraud always does. But the district attorney was thorough. My father tried to reach out through a third-party attorney, offering a settlement if I'd retract my statement. Daniel replied on my behalf. My client declines. I was promoted. Senior partner. The firm didn't praise my loyalty or resilience. They praised my judgment. That's what survives in the end. One evening, I sat on our balcony, city lights flickering below like a grid of quiet victories. Daniel handed me a glass of wine. "You checking the market?" he asked, nodding at my phone. "Just clearing accounts," I said. I opened the blocked messages folder. Dozens of them. Guilt. Anger. Quotes about karma. They were still trying to transact in a currency I no longer used. I selected all. Deleted. For years, I thought solvency was about numbers. Assets minus liabilities. But I learned something better. Solvency is knowing when to stop financing what will never pay you back. My family spent everything they had. My trust, my loyalty, my silence. I didn't. I closed the ledger. And the door. And this time, it stayed closed. Moral lessons. If this story teaches anything, it's that loyalty without boundaries is not love, it's self-erasure. Being dependable does not mean being disposable, and helping family should never require you to quietly destroy your future to protect theirs. Sometimes the hardest courage isn't in confronting people loudly, but in stepping back silently and letting consequences speak for you. If you're carrying financial, emotional, or moral weight that others refuse to share, you're not being strong, you're being used. Walk away before resentment becomes your personality and exhaustion becomes your identity. You are allowed to choose peace over approval, distance over damage, and self-respect over tradition. Closing a door doesn't make you heartless. It means you finally understood your worth.